If you're going to heal from the effects of trauma in your childhood, you're going to be entering a battle between good and evil. And I'm not saying that as a metaphor for anything else. I mean it literally. I am someone who, in my life, I've at times felt the presence of evil. And I felt it in places, I felt it around certain people, and I felt exposed to it in dreams, really, really bad dreams, starting when I was a kid, dreams that, shook me. And without a doubt, evil is involved when a parent abuses a child or neglects them, or when people are bullied, or when someone intentionally harms or destroys another person. Would you agree that's evil? Because the definition of evil matches. Now, according to Merriam-Webster, the word evil describes a person who is profoundly immoral and wicked. They cause harm. They are marked by misfortune. That sounds like abuse and neglect of children to me. Now, as a noun, the dictionary says evil is the fact of suffering, of misfortune, and wrongdoing. Evil is something that brings sorrow, distress, calamity. And very significantly, especially in terms of how I see evil, it is considered a cosmic force. Now, I call it the nefarious force because I just noticed that evil seems to have a life of its own. It's widespread. You can't ever stamp it out entirely. When you try, it comes back like a weed. And in particular, evil is contagious. Now, once you get hurt by an evil action, it can function like a seed that sprouts later in your life. And this is, I believe, this is why we have generational trauma. A parent harms a kid, the kid suffers, but later that little tiny seed starts to grow and the kid grows up potentially to harm more people, including their own kids. Trauma can generate illness and depression, addiction, a loss of mental clarity, a loss of mental health, financial failure, damaged relationships. Trauma is a very destructive thing. And unfortunately, if trauma isn't healed, it is very likely to be passed on. So thankfully, there is also good. In our own lives, every person is living a battle between the part of them that rages and criticizes and abandons and denigrates, and the side of them that loves themselves, that lifts others up, that sees the beauty in living things, including people they don't like, and sometimes makes sacrifices for the benefit of others. Evil is real, but good is also real, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. The battle is waged right here. Now, if you lose your determination, if you lose your moral compass, or if you get overwhelmed and you can't persevere, the evil that you were hurt by when you were a child can start finding its way into the world through your actions. And this is how other people get hurt. I've done this. The way I used to make terrible unconscious choices about relationships undoubtedly hurt other people, and it hurt me. And the thing about trauma is that it makes the hard times so confusing. It's hard to see while you're going through it that you actually have a role to play. It just seems like it's just happening to you. Maybe you get into a bitter conflict with someone you love. You rage at them. You say terrible things. That's a really normal pattern for people who were traumatized as kids, who witnessed that kind of thing when they were kids. So when that behavior is coming from you, it can feel as if it's from outside of you, out of your control, almost inevitable. And that's why I call it a nefarious force. It sometimes looks like a good thing coming into your life, a good thing you're doing, a righteous thing, a deserved thing, but your perception is a little bit off because of the trauma wounds, because maybe you feel too ground down to not do the thing that you know is wrong. And before you know it, it's infected everything in your life, your relationships, your mental health, your ability to financially support yourself, your physical health. Trauma does this. It's like a virus. And when you're vulnerable, it can overtake you. When you're strong, you can resist it. Your willingness to keep working toward healing, your self-regulation, your newfound clarity about what is trauma-driven behavior and thinking and what is healed behavior and thinking, this is your moral immune system. And when that evil thread that began with your early trauma gets in, you can push it back out, or better yet, neutralize it. Your healing from trauma is how you make your life inhospitable for evil to get in. You become resilient against the traumatic experiences you had to go through in the past so that they don't transform from experiences to behaviors. They were experiences and now they're memories, but not behaviors. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but among men who are in prison for felonies, we're talking violent crimes, extreme crimes, 2/3 of them experience some form of early childhood victimization before the age of 12. I'm not saying that they're not guilty because of that. I'm just saying there's a connection. It happened to them. Either there was physical abuse or sexual abuse or neglect. So it is like a virus. Maybe one time you do something destructive and nothing bad comes of it. And then another time you do something destructive and you can't fight it and everything falls apart. So for men in prison, the most common type of abuse was physical abuse. They were beaten. There was, sexual abuse has its own way that it infects people physically, spiritually, emotionally. It's very damaging. It can disrupt hormones. It can damage the most natural instincts that you have. And neglect might be the very worst of all, which you wouldn't expect, right? But neglect is the most correlated with complex PTSD symptoms. Something evil happened to you. It hurt you. It's hard to fight it sometimes. And a lot of people around you probably normalized it or lied about it or gaslit you about it, but it happened and it was evil. Luckily, good is more powerful than evil. And as a person who works every day with people who, like me, they were traumatized as a kid, I've really come to believe, I've observed it really, that people with childhood PTSD have an extraordinary capacity for good. So some days are really hard, but then we find it in ourselves to bring good into the world anyway. Not everybody does, not every day. It's hard to say whether that's a choice that we're making when we manage to do something good or whether we're just lucky or if we're just less damaged than someone else who wasn't able to do that. But the way that we were harmed by evil actions and then the way we turn around and change our lives and keep trying and amaze everyone sometimes with our accomplishments, it is a miracle that shows good is absolutely real and it is more powerful than evil. And I'm here to give you hope and to share with you my confidence, my certainty that no matter what happened to you, there's a little flame of goodness in you that cannot be put out. It's there to bring that subtle but powerful force of goodness through you and out into the world. It's so easy to fall back on the trauma-driven thinking and behavior. It happens. But then we get up and we keep trying. And it helps if you understand this and you're open to it and you're willing to let the light burn a little brighter in you, even when that feels pointless, even when it feels like it will never work. You keep turning your effort toward the good and making it your intention, whether you can see the right next steps or not. With healing, you become willing to just keep putting one foot in front of the other, one next good action after another. And then you look around and you'll see you're walking the path of good. Now, if you can do that, there's been a great victory for the entire universe. Terrible things have been done by humans, and then great things have come to pass to undo the terrible things. Our human consciousness, we're trapped into it whether we want to be or not. We inherit the capacity for every form of evil. Where people have descended into genocide, that could have been us. But in healing, we stop that. The evil action that tries to weave through the generations stops here. It's not easy. It's not automatic. We've all got the capacity to be just like the worst people who ever lived. We're no different. Who is to say? If we had their DNA and their life experiences and their brainwashing, we wouldn't be just like the worst people in history. Most of us will never become killers, I hope, but we'll be haters. We will. We have been. That hate that we toy with when we get into road rage or political hate or being careless with gossip or online chatter that damages another person's reputation, that's the same impulse, the murderous impulse. If you let it keep going, it goes all the way to the worst. to genocide, in fact. We're not above that. And in fact, I sometimes notice that traumatized people can be very, very drawn to extreme thinking and rhetoric of hate. And it can feel at times like it's the answer. See, I'm such a good person. All these other people here, they're bad. That's hate. That's grandiosity. That's what we're capable of. We've all seen it. We've all done it. And it feels really seductive when you're depressed to swap the feeling of depression out for hate. Hate is animating. Hate feels more alive at those times. It feels more powerful. It is more powerful than depression. And it gets you up out of a torpor. It gives you a cause to, go get out there and F up those bad people over there at any cost. And this is where trauma comes from. This is where it comes from people blind with anger, blind with acting out on their own internalized trauma. So hate is not the answer, and acting out is not the answer either. If you want to heal, I'd recommend you be very careful not to tear other people down. Don't jump into bitter feuds with people who you know online. If you feel the need to tell other people about the bad things someone else has done, someone you know or a stranger, double check your facts before you do it. Check your motives. Don't personally do anything that you feel that you have to lie about. Don't be stubborn when what's needed is an apology or a kind word or letting go of whatever you were holding against somebody else. Stand up for those who aren't able to stand up for themselves. People who are not in the room when somebody else is trashing them. Somebody who's not powerful enough to defend themselves against a big online attack. And don't use hostility where what you really need are boundaries. Okay? Healing is the answer. When you heal your trauma, you heal yourself. You heal all your future relationships. You heal your possibilities. You heal your destiny. And you brighten your light. When you do this, your light, do you know what I mean by light? The energy and love that you bring into the world with the little things that you do, maybe the big things you do too. Your light ripples out to affect all men and women everywhere, all who have ever lived really, and all who will live. Your light is the most real thing about you. It has not given up on you. It is yours to nurture, yours to bask in, yours to develop, yours to share. And this is how good wins. You make it a priority, a sacred priority, to heal your trauma wounds. You may not know how to do that yet, and that's why it's so good you're here with all of us, the people in the comment section, me, my team, the people in my courses and my membership. All the little lights here are shining together, and we help each other. We lift each other up. When one person starts to go down, starts to turn negative, we pull them back in. We revere the good, and we heal ourselves so that we can give a hand to the next people we meet who need that. Good wins in the end, but it needs us to try for it. We have to aim for it. So people ask me sometimes, your daily practice techniques are nice and everything, but how long is it going to take me to heal? Or I don't see why I have to keep working on myself when no one else has to. And you're right, no one has to. Many people don't. But everyone can, and I hope you will, because there's nothing more important than overcoming and undoing the evil that was done to you. Now, sometimes I see healing like grass. We're blades of grass, like that. And it's as if we got stuck for a whole season under a black tarp, and the grass didn't die, but it can't grow, and it seems dead, like bad grass. It's all yellow and stringy under there, and there's little pill bugs and worms. And then one day, you lift up the tarp. You have the power to do that when you're healing. And the sun shines on the grass. The sun can't not shine on the grass. It's so natural. And the rain falls on it. And in not very much time, the grass begins to come back, and it becomes what it was always meant to be. It's grass. It's green. It's strong. It's abundant. That's what it's meant to be. You are like that. You're designed to heal just like the grass. You just need water and sun, okay? And what is that? You can think of water as the tools that you use to name and release the bad thing, to become free of it. The hateful thoughts, the discouragement, the bad kind of grief and loneliness that grind you down and drive you towards the worst things you've ever done. Loneliness does that. My tools, personally, are the daily practice techniques that I teach. A lot of you do those techniques with me, and if you haven't tried them and you need some tools, they're lovely for washing away the fearful and resentful thoughts that trauma generates and that can drive you when you haven't healed yet. The links are always down in the description section. The sunshine you can think of as the loving atmosphere that supports your healing, the warmth. With a little luck, you're going to meet people who are walking this path with you. And that's what we've cultivated here on this channel and in the programs I offer, which you can always find in the description section if you want to check them out for yourself. You need water and sunshine, tools and support. You may have thought that nothing good would ever happen again, but with tools and loving support, you can't help but start sending up green shoots just like grass does. It doesn't know it's doing that. It doesn't have to know how. It just does it. It's what it's meant to do. When evil happens, it is a calamity. It's a terrible disruption, just like the dictionary says. When good is winning, though, it's a subtle thing. It's like a river. I often liken it to a river. It's just going along. You can fight it. You can be afraid of it. You can cling to the bank, the roots that are sticking out on the bank. You can go, oh no, I'm not getting in. I'm scared where this is going. But you might start to find, as you feel safer because you have less fear and resentment, that you can just sort of, without knowing exactly where you're going, you can start yielding to the current of the good and let it begin to change your life in a positive direction. It's normal that traumatized people are nervous about healing because change could mean anything, right? We could lose what little hope we still have. But you're going to find that it doesn't tend to play out that way. It's subtle. Good is subtle. And you can actually always stop it from happening. That's in my 29 years of healing, I've just sometimes kind of freaked out, like, everything's changing so fast. I'm afraid where this is going. I'm afraid it's going to make me alone. And then I just stop using my tools. You pull away from people who support your healing. We've all done it. Sometimes it feels necessary. But then when you're satisfied that not healing isn't what you want, really, you can just let that warm river carry you along very gently towards your own goodness and fulfillment. To be demoralized means to be deflated of all that makes you strong. To have too many bad and discouraging things happen to you until you lose your mental clarity, you lose your drive to bring good into the world, you definitely get disempowered, but it takes that disempowerment one terrible step further to where you lose your awareness or valuing of what is good. When you're demoralized, you turn away from what is good and true and morally right. You don't even know what good is anymore. You can't detect what is right or what's important. And when you're demoralized, you believe that good is, whatever I want it to be, whatever everybody says. And many people will tell you that this is the case, that it's totally subjective and it's rude to assume you know wrong from right. But if you really believe this, that what is good is unknowable, or that seeking what is good is rude, then everything becomes meaningless and pointless. No wonder we get demoralized. Now, when we're in that state, it's almost impossible to imagine that anything we do can make a difference. Has this happened to you? Trauma can definitely do that to a person. And if that's where you are right now, it is so important that you start healing it. Now, in my work, helping people heal from past trauma, one thing that's really painful to see is how many people have completely written off any possibility that healing is possible. And I see this in the YouTube comments mixed in with everything else. It's too late for me, or what about if nobody cares about you and nobody ever helped you, or things like anyone who was traumatized just becomes a target for narcissists, so it's best to just avoid people because people suck. These are the things that people say when they're demoralized. Their belief that good exists in the world and within them, that good can come into their lives and change their experiences and their circumstances, it's been shut down. And you can hear by the cynicism and the scolding tone of this kind of comment that it's painful for them to hear messages of hope. They come to the channel, they watch a video, which is a hopeful act, by the way, but something snaps shut and won't allow them to apply it to themselves. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, really. If you can't let help in, healing gets a lot harder. And that's why demoralization is really what we're healing when we're working to heal trauma. We're reactivating that instinctive and universal connection to what is true and good. We could debate what is true and struggle to know truth, but truth is truth, whether we've figured it out or not. It doesn't change depending on what mood you're in. We know there's evil in the world. We know there's good, and mostly people are good. Now, whatever you read online or you see in the news, mostly people spend their days cooperating with each other, helping each other, doing work that's mostly to serve the cause of good. And yes, there are exceptions. And when you're demoralized, your mind tells you that the exceptions prove that the rule that, most people, including you, are pretty good. Well, it can't be true. That's what your mind tells you in demoralization. That kind of thinking is a hallmark of demoralization, and it can bring the worst out in people, and it can do a lot of damage. Demoralization has happened to people throughout history. They fell into it, or they were intentionally manipulated into it. It happens to little communities, and it happens to whole countries. And this is very dangerous because when people are demoralized, they're very, very susceptible to a loss of unity. They turn against each other. They're quick to anger. They're full of fear. They're quick to blame, and they're easily led. And if hearing this makes you think of other people like that, I'm going to suggest that that's exactly what demoralization wants you to think. It wants you not to look at yourself. It wants you to blame other people by categories or individuals and ignore anything that you can actually change for the better. Demoralization needs you to grow cynical, to turn your back on problems and stop trying. Whole generations have lived through cycles of demoralization and then come through on the other side toward, what can we call it? Remoralization. The recovery of a lived sense that good is possible, and that with our innate goodness, if we work on it, we can make it real in the world. Now, I feel strongly about this in terms of childhood PTSD, that healing can only happen when we fix our eyes on a vision of what is possible and not keep expecting that focus on what happened in the past is going to change anything. Yes, you may need to discuss it or get it acknowledged, but the focus goes on the vision. If you don't have a vision, there's nothing to do but go in circles with your trauma. The solution, the change, comes from focusing on what is holding you back right now. If you grew up traumatized, believe me, life is full of problems. It's part of what trauma does. Now, it's not your fault that you were abused and neglected and bullied as a kid, but sooner or later you realize that no one is coming to fix that for you. Even if you could make all these problems, stop existing in the world. The injury already happened. And so now it's in your hands to begin working on that injury, to change your life from exactly where you are right now. It's a good place to start. Now, some of you will get angry when I say that. You'll unsubscribe, you'll, say terrible things in the comments, you'll shut off the video, and that's okay, because I'll still be here when that little glimmer of good shows up in your life and you want to come back. And whether you want it or not, hope is going to appear. Hope is here that maybe things can get better. So this is a powerful and positive sign when you feel hope, that even though you may be discouraged and demoralized right now, the truth of you is very much alive, and there's a great well of strength in you, a light. And not only is it meant to shine, but it's meant to shine right now. It's shining right now. Can you feel that? That light in you dissolves cynicism. Hopelessness gets diluted by hope. Hope has a way of growing. All right. How? What are you even talking about, Anna? People are going to be like, all right, enough about that. What do I do? What do I do? Your demoralization is like a heavy cloak, all right? Think of it that way. It presses you down. It covers you. It makes everything feel heavy and impossible. It keeps you from knowing that you can actually take it off. Demoralization tends to follow certain patterns. It manifests in a handful of problems, ordinary human weaknesses that can become big problems. They can dominate your life. Things like avoidance, anger, indifference, overwhelm, isolation, escapism, and blame. Demoralization loves more than anything when you blame. And you might recognize some of these things in yourself. And if you're demoralized, you're going to tell me, but I have to be angry. I have to avoid responsibility and blah, blah, blah. And I get it. I totally do. You didn't ask for these problems. You can't just snap your fingers and say some dumb affirmation and make them gone. If you're like I was, you don't even know what to do. You can ask experts and they give you platitudes, but nothing practical. If it's all touchy-feely and out of touch with with how rough and how ugly life gets when trauma is active, what is it worth? When I was trying to get help for what was basically life-threatening demoralization, I was instinctively looking for what I did wrong, and the people I asked for help wanted to get me to not look at that. I think they thought I was too vulnerable to face my own responsibility for some of the problems in my life. And at that point, it was a lot me who was generating the problems. But I was in denial, and I think I was getting helped by some of the people that I was, paying to help me. But I knew nothing would get better until I figured out how to stop basically acting like a bad person. I was pushing everyone away. I mean, the fact was there. And I craved to know, like, how do I become good? And the person who did help me affirmed that for me. She said I was screwing up, and she told me I needed to stop screwing up. And the old-fashioned word for this is renounce. Now, if you think this is too judgmental or ancient, you're not demoralized enough yet to experience the delicious comfort of the word renounce. I renounce it. I renounce this behavior. I renounce this problem. It's something that you can do even before you even understand, like, why do I even do it? How am I going to do it? It's just like, I do, though. I renounce it. I needed to renounce those negative thoughts and tendencies and behaviors that I was engaged in back then. That was the first thing I had to do. Nothing else could work because my thinking and my actions and my beliefs, the way I affected other people it was confusing to me because I was demoralized, and I was demoralized because of what I was doing. A demoralized mind can't easily see an alternative or come back from demoralization. Something has to show you the alternative. Sometimes by grace, it will be shown to you. You will stumble into it and go, you know what? I could be better than this. But sometimes it's just a person. If you need me, I'll be the person who suggests to you that you take a look at the signs of demoralization in your life and spend some time with them, and then decide if you're ready to turn away from them. Here's a simple thing you can do. It's called contrary action. You may not know yet exactly where you need to end up, but it's enough to know you want to turn away from what you're doing now and begin to basically do the opposite. Okay, so let's go over those signs I mentioned of demoralization: avoidance, anger, indifference, overwhelm, isolation, escapism, and blame. I'm going to describe them to you, and then I will tell you how to turn each one around using contrary actions, the opposite. Now, you actually have the power to do that. And yes, everyone has circumstances that are challenging to one degree or the other. Big problems, I know. But this is about finding that little light inside, that little ray of hope. And it's about, most of all, action. And I know a lot about action because for all the thinking and reading and talking that I ever did about my problems, the thing that ever made a difference for me was the actions I took. Now, I spent a lot of my life demoralized, and what changed was not my circumstances first. It was me who changed. All right. Now, if this bothers you, hearing me talk about how I did it, when I, instead of like blamey talk or flowery talk or little Instagram wisdom, just straight talk on how to actually like take action to make your life new, then this is not a good video for you. I'll just give you that heads up right now. All right, so let me tell you the signs of demoralization one by one, and then I'll tell you the contrary action, the thing that you can do to remoralize yourself around that problem. Number one, avoidance. This is very popular with people who were traumatized as kids. People are triggering, commitments are triggering, so we end up just pulling away and avoiding it. Your contrary action is to show up, to get clear about what you need to be doing, and people who you need to stay connected with. You also are going to want to stay connected to the actions, just the little tasks in your daily life that keep your life moving. So what is it? Paying a bill, apologizing to someone, returning a phone call, spending a full evening with someone you love without looking at your phone or watching TV. Yeah, you can make a list of these things and then prioritize the things that you really need to be taking action on. Make those appointments, follow through on them. Every Sunday night, make a new list. That's what I do, Sunday nights. All right. The second sign of demoralization is anger. Now, I don't have to explain what anger is. It's something that people with complex PTSD often have too much of. It comes out and hurts people. Your contrary action is to release those resentful thoughts that hold your thinking in an iron grip of anger and block you from feeling joy. If you want a way to loosen up your anger, I strongly encourage you to try my daily practice techniques. And you may want to write that down for after you finish the video. I will definitely put a link at the end of this video, and it's always down in the description section if you want to learn these techniques to free yourself of fearful and resentful thinking. But these techniques are deceptively simple. I've been using them 29 years. They're very powerful to help you face and be rid of angry and anxious thoughts. And when you learn how to move all that stuff out of the way for a while, because they do come back. You just keep doing it. That's why it's a daily practice. You experience a clear and peaceful mind. And you are going to want that feeling again. Trust me, it feels good. All right, number 3 is indifference. This is another sign of demoralization. And it's where you get so numb that you don't really care one way or the other what happens. A lot of traumatized people have been heavily criticized in the past, maybe bullied, ostracized, or demeaned in a relationship, dumped. And to survive all that, you learn to just act like, I don't even care. You can't even hurt me. And I get it. In the past, you had to do whatever it took to deal with the shame and the disgrace and the loss of people treating you like that, not caring about you. So you bragged about not caring about them or yourself. You know, they were a dick, whatever. This may scare you, but any awake person sees right through that. It's a cry of pain to say you don't care. Of course you care. And you don't have to shield yourself from that anymore because it's a lie. You know what I used to shield myself with? Cigarettes. I used to smoke 2 packs a day for like 16 years. And I loved how I could just hang a cigarette out of my mouth and frown and go blowing out smoke in a way that told other people, I don't even freaking care. It was like an armor I wore. I was actually really sad. I was really angry, and I had no idea what to do with that. That wouldn't just wreck everything in my life, right? So I just like, and I smoked that anger. God help my lungs. Then I stopped, and it took a lot of tries to stop, but I did stop. I have a video about that. I'll try to remember to put that down below if you want to see it. But at first, I would stop smoking, I'd start, and then one day I had the power to renounce it, all right? I told you we'd talk about renouncing. And I was able to use the contrary action, and in my case, that was to start doing my daily practice techniques twice a day, for real, without fail. And then the anger and the fear began to leave me. And I couldn't trust it until I knew with certainty that the daily practice would keep working for me, that it would be a reliable way to feel better as needed and not turn out to be some crazy cult thing that just failed like everything else. It took a few years for me to really trust that, and that's when the smoking stopped. It's now been 26 years as I stand here taping this, almost exactly 26 years this month. All right, number 4, overwhelm. This is still one that's hard for me. It's a sign of demoralization. It also leads to demoralization. I think that's probably true of all the signs. They are caused by demoralization and they cause worse demoralization. I'm the queen of overwhelm. It still happens. When I let myself get demoralized, my life, which is full and good and interesting, instantly becomes too much for me, and I hate my life. And I get mad, and I start procrastinating and hyperventilating and dysregulating, and I'm no use to anybody. And the contrary action for me is to slow down. I make a list. I like lists. You may not. I do. I have a little digital thing called Kanban Flow. You know, it's a free app. If it costs money, I'd get a deal where I get kickbacks every time I recommend this to people, because I think thousands of people are using it. But it's really simple, and you can just make these columns, make little tasks. You can slide them into other columns. You can name the columns. You can color code things. I do that for how long it takes. It's just totally how I handle things. Every morning I just get up and look at my board, and I see what I've got, and I just love noodling with it. And it's got all these, like, you know, nether regions off screen. If you were to scroll all the way over, it's like, oh, here's some old stuff I meant to do like 2 years ago. So one thing that's always on my list is to clean up the board, and I never do, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It is enough that I keep this area of it clear of what I'm going to do. And in fact, like taping these videos is on it today, and it's color-coded pink because it was going to take me 2.5 hours. I already know that, right? So if you have childhood PTSD, it can feel so good to just take one thing at a time. Your brain loves it when you slow down and you do things one thing at a time. You don't have to be methodical all day long. You could just get this way when you get overwhelmed. I don't know, you might want to do an ounce of prevention, but when you're overwhelmed, just consider it time to slow down and start doing things one thing at a time. That whole multitasking thing, they say, oh, it's a myth that multitasking is possible or good, but I think that's also a myth. It's like sometimes we multitask successfully, sometimes we're too dysregulated and we just need to slow down and just be like Mr. Rogers about it. Sit down, take out the shoes, take off the shoes, put on the shoes, tie the laces. It feels good. It's very calming and regulating for your mind. If your CPTSD is shaped kind of like mine, sometimes you get emotionally or mentally overwhelmed when you're hurried, when everyone's talking to you at once, when there's a big deadline coming up or something really exciting happened. When that feeling that you're just getting overwhelmed is rising up in you, renounce it. Just say, this is overwhelm. I renounce overwhelm. I'm not into it anymore. And allow yourself to pause and have new opportunities, a new way of dealing with it, enter into your imagination. Pause, imagine, just let something new come. You'll get things done faster this way. It's true. Try it. All right. 5. Another sign of demoralization is isolation. Oh, this is the favorite around here. This is the biggest and most universal trauma symptom. It's a natural response to feeling triggered around people, not trusting yourself. It's a little like avoidance is not doing tasks. Isolation is not doing people, right? And so if you can't gracefully handle things because your CPTSD symptoms get out into the room, then, trauma, it's an injury, right? It's injuring you. It's holding you back. It's an injury to your ability to connect. And so connections feel fraught, and not connecting with people, here's the problem. It can make it impossible to heal. So that instinct might be to pull away from people to deal with all those triggers, but it's only going to get worse if you stop dealing with people. So the contrary action is to, in a measured way, not like all at once. You don't just throw yourself into the center of the party. If this is hard for you, if it's triggering for you, it's to connect with people a little at a time every day. And this is a huge part of what I teach and in my connection boot camp. And if it's a big issue for you, you might want to check that course out. I'll be sure there's a link down in the description section for you on that. You need to simultaneously work to calm your triggers and then also work that muscle of connecting with people. So calm yourself, connect, calm, connect, calm, connect. I call it titration, which is from medicine and science. A little at a time, see how you do. A little more, see how you do. All right, number 6, another sign of demoralization is escapism. And this is where we try to get away from the pain of our present reality and away from anxiety about what might happen in the future by using fantasies or drugs or booze or running away or quitting things or magical thinking or making up platitudes to justify huge problems like it's all good or monogamy is for losers anyway, or he abuses me, but that's because he was so wounded by his mother when he was a kid and he needs me to stand by him. That's magical thinking. When you live demoralized and you've lost touch with the difference between what is good and healthy and what is irresponsible and evil, you can justify just about anything you want. And this is dangerous because not only can it hurt you, it can hurt other people. And it will further damage your awareness of good. It just chips away and grinds you down, creates the illusion that good is your enemy. You run into people who really think that. Their thinking is so distorted. All right, finally, the ugliest result of demoralization, number 7, is blame. Blame. Demoralization thrives when you don't have the strength to face your own mistakes, and instead you place the blame on other people in your life, even if it takes wild stretches of your imagination to do it. Now, healing has a fighting chance when you take serious time for self-examination, when you question all your problems and ask yourself, which part of this have I created? Now, this is a magic question because in any given problem, there's like some portion that's not your fault at all, but there's some aspect of it, perhaps, that you brought to it, that you could change. And this is your magic sweet spot because what you can change is what you can change. You can't change the circumstances necessarily. You can't change other people. You can't change the past. But you can change these decisions you make, the attitude you took, the words you said. You can work on those things. So much of the time, that is enough. You change one little thing and the rest of it melts away, or they fall away, or the people who are like that just leave your life. Now, a lot of people fear looking at their part in problems, but it's actually really safe because it just goes without saying that when it happened, you didn't know any better. There was something going on in you that you couldn't really manage a different choice at that time. And most of your problems, they were created for you by the people who abused you. So that beam of light, that hope that comes when you find a piece of the problem that these days you have the ability to change, this is precious. When I first started doing this, when I first discovered how potent it was to look at my part in problems, I just went wild. I just wanted to blame myself for everything. And not out of self-attack, but because it was such a high to go, oh my gosh, I have control over something. I just wanted control over everything, which of course, I don't have, you don't have. Now, over time, I could see that not everything was my fault, but those that were very powerful. I had to only change a little bit about myself before a whole bunch of stuff started changing like a domino effect. That's why it's easier than it seems. Like you look at all your problems at once and you're just like, how will I ever hack through all of these? It's like, just start with one, start with something that you can change, see what happens. Growing up traumatized breaks your ability to connect with people. It breaks down moral order. It damages your perception, your discernment about your relationships. And in that void, it's easy to be driven by fear and anger and resentment and blame. Everyone pays the price when one of us becomes separated from what's good. So if you're ready to change, to heal your life and become a source of hope for other people, ask yourself, are you ready to take a step up and renounce these negative aspects of yourself? Even if you don't know how to change, you don't know where it's headed, you don't know what it's supposed to look like, just begin and take the first contrary action that you can see in front of you. You can't help but have that lead to a revelation of what your second step is going to be. It's like walking in a fog at first. If you can see one thing, just do it where you are. You don't have to know the root cause. You don't have to know the other steps. Just the thing that you can see needs fixing that you feel like you could possibly try. Try that. Start where you are. Your life is important. Your experience can be used for good. And with healing, you're going to have more focus and more energy to do it. If you've been reading my blog or watching my videos or taking my courses, you're probably in a place where you're going deeper than you have before and being bolder about facing some of the really hard stuff in your past. And hopefully, you've been able to get even more honest with yourself than you have before about not just how you're affected by childhood PTSD, but about your own behaviors that are flowing from that traumatized place and sabotaging you. And if you're trying to change that right now, you're probably finding out how hard that is. Most people with childhood PTSD, they're affected by trauma and neglect, and they just stay affected. Some problems tend to get better as we age, but most of them don't. And some of this stuff, if you let it go on, it'll start making you weird. I think we all know some older people who had maybe some ordinary quirks in their personality, but they never dealt with it. And as time goes by, they get weird. They get mean or insanely judgmental or paranoid. And that contributes to them being isolated. In fact, we only get to avoid changing by staying isolated. I think there are a handful of people who will just get lucky and spontaneously heal, or they'll meet this incredible person who changes their inner lives and softens their edgy personalities. But for most of us, change is only going to happen if we pretty much throw ourselves into an honest fact-finding about everything we're doing that's making life harder, and then being unprecedentedly brave about doing something about it. And it's been my experience that even when I go full tilt, 100% in this direction, there's some stuff I haven't been able to change about myself. And one example was smoking. My last cigarette was on May 26th, 1997. And the fact that I stopped was a miracle, and something I know without a shadow of a doubt I could not have done unless some kind of spiritual power had made it happen. Now, if you're an atheist and this is crazy talk to you, don't even worry about finishing this video. Just stick to the practical techniques I teach. But if you're open to this, I'll tell you what happened.
So I was a heavy smoker for 16 years before I quit. I was at 2 packs a day. That's 40 cigarettes. It's hard to smoke 40 cigarettes in a day, but not for me. Sometimes it was even more. And I wanted to quit so bad. I had made, I think, about 30 serious attempts to quit. I'd get a few days, maybe a few weeks, and then I'd relapse and go full on addicted immediately, which was so depressing and demoralizing. I was ashamed of myself, and I kidded myself that people didn't know how bad the problem was. I started to smoke because I heard that I'd lose weight, and I did at first. And I knew that my mother had smoked really heavily while she was pregnant with me. And I wondered if this explained why the little buzz of nicotine that I'd get from that first hit of a cigarette felt so comforting and womb-like from the very first time I smoked. And I used to stand outside and take a drag off my cigarette and think to myself, God, I love smoking. Cigarettes, for me, they were a way of taking a break. They were a way to collect myself. They functioned, I'm pretty sure, as a very crude antidepressant and anti-anxiety medicine for a while. They were re-regulating me, and I used them to push down anger and sadness, and I was really angry and really sad. Cigarettes gave me just a little extra distance from people, and when you have childhood PTSD, that distance is something like inner strength. It's not inner strength, but sometimes it's all you've got. Now, if I would try not to smoke, it wasn't just the cravings, it was the feeling of like wretched depression that would just bring me down. And it was so bad that at a certain point, the only sane thing I could do to save myself would be to smoke again. I smoked when I was sick. I smoked when I visited my mom while she was dying of lung cancer. I smoked while I was spraying bleach cleaner on a moldy wall and I was inhaling the particles. And I put myself in danger, like smoking outside of bars at night. I was constantly brushing my teeth and washing my hands to try to hide the smoking, which I now know is kind of funny because I know now that I don't smoke that you can, smoke has a smell and you can smell it even if people are brushing their teeth. It's in your hair, it's in your clothes. And smoking almost certainly caused the development of my reactive airway. And you're actually hearing the results of that today. I had a cold a while ago, and I get asthma every time I get a cold because of my history of smoking, even though it's been more than 20 years. And I'm sure it played a role in the development of Graves' disease, which is a thyroid disease that I got just before I quit smoking. And it's a condition that requires radiation therapy to fix. It's pretty serious. And in fact, when I received radioactive iodine as a treatment, they said, okay, don't smoke. But of course, I couldn't not smoke. I was like a physical wreck at this low point in my life at that time and getting radiation treatment to actually kill the thyroid tissue. My muscles were wasted. I was really stressed out. I was spiritually worn down, and I was feeling totally alone in the world. And I had a lot going on. And about that time, I visited my stepdad in Tucson, just spending the night before I went into a 1-week silent retreat I'd booked, and it was just outside of town. And I was so ashamed because he just cared for my mom and then his own mother, one after the other, while they died of lung cancer. And then he got cancer, very serious cancer. And this visit was in the very early days after he kind of miraculously survived. Now, my stepdad is not the type to lecture me, but I had a pretty good idea how he would feel about my smoking. And I didn't have the heart to do that to him. So I was sitting on the back steps of his house that first night, having one last cigarette and planning for the whateverth time to quit the next day. And in the morning, I went into this silent retreat center and I had very little to do. So even though it wasn't really my thing, I participated in the prayers that took place there throughout the day, sort of like, I thought of it like an anthropological exercise. Because like back then, religious people who prayed, in my view, they were just kind of like dumb weirdos. But I was there at the retreat. I wanted to be there. And I'm sorry to say I had a really judgmental and narrow-minded attitude about it. But I was really attracted to what they were doing. It was peaceful. It was gentle. You could just kind of feel this healing in the air. They were always inviting me to participate. And mostly I didn't. And they were fine with that. And I was just being silent, doing whatever seemed good as it presented it to me. But it turned out this combination of prayer and being alone and silent, it got really emotionally intense. And more than once, I kind of threw myself face down on my bed, and I had this little room. It had a bed, a bathroom, a desk, and I would just be on the bed crying some days. And most of the days, I also went for a hike in the desert. I'd go when the air was cool in the morning and the evening. And continually, I kept writing my fears and resentments, which, as I say, like a broken record in all my videos and courses, it's been the great re-regulating technique of my life. I didn't know it was about PTSD then, but it was treating my PTSD. And, you will find instructions on how to do this in the videos and on my blog. And then I'd follow writing with meditation twice a day. And that has helped me to this day too. But in that retreat, I was writing, meditating, and then I began to experiment with prayer. It was like this desperate prayer in the morning, in the evening, usually crumpled up on the floor, maybe like on the bed. And I'd say, please stop me from smoking. And then at the end of the day, I'd say, thank you for giving me this one day without smoking. And then I got through that first week. And this delicious feeling of healing was kind of taking root in me. I'd had a week off cigarettes before, but this felt different. And I left the retreat and I went to go stay at my stepdad's house for another week. And my brother, who became a physical therapist later, he was kind of helping me rehabilitate, paddling in the pool, wearing a flotation belt, having a snack, resting. And it was really nice. And then after that, I spent 3 days driving back to my home in Northern California via the Highway 395 in the Eastern Sierra, which is the most beautiful place on earth. And I always feel good there. And it was late spring. There was a mix of kind of spots of warm sun and lightning and streaks of gray rain moving across the valley. And if you've never been there, there's huge mountains on either side. And I still felt it. Something was different. And then I was back in my regular life, and I kept on writing and meditating like religiously, like more than I ever had. And it made it possible to get through the intense emotions I was having without turning to cigarettes. And I stopped drinking alcohol because even though alcohol itself was never a problem for me, it was a trigger for smoking. So then more days went by, and then months. And my prayers were able to move on from, please help me not smoke, to other hopes and needs that I had, like, please let me pay off my debt. Please let me have a family. And I continued writing and meditating. And within 2 years, I was out of debt. And I met someone. And if you've read my story, you know this did not end up being my lifelong partner, but we had 2 children together. I had 2 smoke-free pregnancies. And when I'd been off cigarettes for 8 years, I tried very carefully to see if I could drink alcohol without smoking, and I did, and it was fine. So here's the weird thing. Since that summer when I quit, I have not had so much as a slip or even a craving for a cigarette, which is physically impossible. When I quit, I was using nicotine patches. If you care to know how I did it, I wore patches during those early months, but I'd used patches and gum and hypnosis and classes and all that stuff many, many times before, and they never were enough to help me bear that, just the overwhelming cravings that I had to smoke again. So even when the doctor told me to stop, even when I came to feel like death was just sitting in my lungs, even when my mom died of smoking, I couldn't stop. And no one but a heavy smoker could ever really understand the intensity of that desire. But I just did not have the power to quit. Now, I've had a few miracles in my life, but there is always some kind of scientific explanation. So, whatever, except in this case. There is no scientific explanation for the fact that one day my desire to smoke just evaporated. And if this is possible, I reasoned, anything is possible. And this knowledge completely changed the direction of my life. So this begs the question, with childhood PTSD, is spirituality necessary, or are practical techniques enough? And I can't answer that for you. The techniques and ideas I'm showing you are just from my own program. They're adapted from pieces that I learned from reading and living and learning from now several mentors, including people who are spiritual and actually in some cases religious people. And though what I teach you is not specific to any faith, and it works on a practical level all by itself, I can't say I'd even be in a position to teach it if I hadn't had a spiritual experience. So honestly, Without that, I think I'd still be back there struggling or worse. So I want to say, whether or not you believe in miracles or God or a power outside of ourselves that can help us, the power of this daily practice I teach of writing fears and resentments and meditating, it doesn't change. If it's really just a practical technique, then it doesn't matter whether you ascribe spiritual significance to it. And if it's powered by God, it may not matter that you know that. Just like it may not matter if you know the atomic composition of a water molecule, even though your life depends on it. But if you're doing all the footwork and you're not quite getting the results that you want of healing, and there's a small part of you that believes or hopes that there is a power out there that can meet you right where you are, in the point where your own capacity to heal your life may be stuck, it doesn't hurt to ask, and you might as well try.
I have a special assignment for all of you who might be feeling empty at the moment. Maybe you're feeling depressed or hopeless or a little bit lost, or like things have gotten so bad that there just isn't any good in the world anymore. And this is one of my special guided relaxation videos. You don't need to even watch it. You can just close your eyes and listen to it if you want, as I take you on a tour of experiences you've had in the past. Not all the trauma and the bad stuff. You can put that outside the door for now. What I'm inviting you to focus on as you listen is the good in the world. And there is so much good. And when we give it our attention, it has a way of seeping into us and resetting some of the areas where we're sad and stuck and locked down and having trouble seeing any good at all. So this is an assignment I'm going to give you. And I'm going to take you on a memory tour of just a few of the experiences you've had and the people you've had the good fortune to encounter who brought some good into your world. So what I invite you to do is, as you keep listening, is to get into a comfy chair or a sofa and settle in, just very, very comfortable. And if you like, you can close your eyes. If you're driving, obviously don't close your eyes. But you can go through the guided relaxation exercise even while you're walking or driving or doing work with your hands. It's not going to be that deep of a traveling away. You're going to be thinking of things. So when you're comfortable, here's your assignment. I'm going to be listing a series of positive experiences that you might have had, and I'll be inviting you to dwell on those for a little bit. And I'll go slowly so you have time to think. And if I mention an experience you haven't had yet, that's okay. Just stay with the exercise. I'll tell you what to do if that's the case. And if you want to stop at any time, that's fine too. So once you're in a safe spot, just close your eyes, or not, and just feel your trusty body in a state of rest. Maybe you have a few aches and pains or something you don't like about your body, but just for this moment, give your body some appreciation for all it does for you. It allows you to live and breathe and be alive. And if you're lucky, it gives you hands to gesture and touch to comfort people or pets, kitties and doggies who you love. And your body allows you to express yourself with your voice and your facial expressions and your speech. And if you have vision and hearing and taste and smell, not everybody has them, but whatever you have the extraordinary power to sense your environment. And this is no small thing. Your body is good, and it was made so that you could live and learn and bring good into the world. So just give some love and appreciation for a moment to your magnificent living body. What a miracle it is. You may have criticisms of it and things that you wish would change about it, but set those aside and just feel what an instrument of good that you've been given in the form of your body. Now I invite you to notice the space where you're sitting to listen to my voice. Are you in a room in your home? Are you in an office? A bench outside somewhere? Maybe you're in a place that's not your home, but you're staying there, or in a car. And I want you to just give some appreciation for the place where you are now. You're not out in the cold. You're not out in the heat, I trust. You get to rest your feet and your back and just take a rest. And maybe it's a bit noisy or maybe it's quiet. If you're in a building or a structure or on a bench or in a car, just bring your attention to the fact that there were actual people who built that structure. Maybe it was a long time ago. The people who built what's around you, they each had a story. They had their struggles and sources of happiness, and this was the work they did. So even if it was a long time ago, let's think about those people, the builders with tools who spent their days, long days, making this space where you're sitting now. And they might have even wondered to themselves, I wonder who will end up living here. And you haven't met those builders, but you're now in the same space where they spent their days working, and maybe they had hard days, maybe they had good days, maybe they were worried about things. They probably had lunch a time or two in there in the same room where you're sitting. So you might just think about them with appreciation and connection, that their work allows you now to sit in safety and comfort. They brought some good into the world. All right, now I invite you to begin thinking about some of the other people you've encountered in your life. I know some people hurt you, and that's part of your story, and maybe it's still hard for you. But for the next several minutes, I'm going to lead you in calling to mind some of the dear people who brought good into your life. And yes, sometimes it's the same people who also did some harm. But all the same, let's visit the good that's come your way. Think of someone who once comforted you when you were sick or grieving or injured. Can you think of that person? Were the little things they did, the attention they gave you, the touch, the reassurance, did it help you go from a state of fear or pain to a cozy feeling of ease? Did it help you know that you were safe to go to sleep and to heal inside? Remember what a good feeling that was. That person brought good into the world. So just take a moment to appreciate them for that. Now think of a person who introduced you to a work of art, like a book or a painting or a song that resonated for you in the most beautiful way and opened up your imagination. You hadn't known about that wonderful work before, but someone who loved it and felt enthusiastic shared it with you. They brought something good to you and into the world by doing that. So just in your mind, just take a moment and give thanks to the person who did that for you. Right now, think of someone who praised you for your natural ability in something. Maybe when you were a kid, someone noticed that you were a fast runner or a responsible helper around the house, or that you were kind to the pets. Maybe the praise you received was later for a job well done or a brave action you took or for a thoughtful gift you gave. And the person who praised you helped you see what was good about you, and that was their way to bring more good into the world. There is good in the world, but some people have a way of bringing more. So think of someone who got you out of danger at some point. If you're listening, I know you didn't always feel safe, but was there someone who stepped in at some time and pulled you out of danger's way? They stood up for you against someone who was going to hurt you maybe, or they taught you how to protect yourself, to fight, or they pulled you back from a choice you made or were about to make to go down some destructive path. That person brought some good into the world. So just take a moment to acknowledge a time or two when this happened for your benefit. All right, next I'd like you to think of someone who taught you a skill that helped you earn money. Being able to earn money is such a gift, right? Was it someone who taught you to use a computer or drive a car? Did they help you be a good writer or a good builder, or to be good at cleaning, to be a great leader, to be good at caring for other people, maybe to do something clinical for others, to do research, to cook, to be of service to others? Whatever has allowed you to earn money and eat and keep a roof over your head, give thanks for a moment to the person who taught you how to do that. You weren't born knowing that. They taught you, and they brought good into the world in this way. Okay, now think of someone who modeled for you how to be a good and moral person. Now, none of us are born with that knowledge, but we learn it from the people around us. Even if some of the people around us were doing bad things, there were other people in our midst, neighbors, teachers, friends, even characters on TV shows, were modeling for us how to navigate in the world and how to act with honor and courage and kindness. Can you think of someone who modeled that for you in a way that impacted who you became? Let's give them a moment of your silent appreciation for bringing good into the world. Has there been someone who helped you get organized when life was overwhelming? Maybe they gave you a place to stay or helped you with housework. or helped you clean out a garage that you couldn't even walk in because you had gotten so burdened with everything going on in your life. So let's take a moment to honor those people with your appreciation silently. They brought good into the world. All right, is there someone who defended you when you were unfairly accused of something? That's a terrible feeling, and it means the world when someone stands up for you. So if that's happened for you, hold them in your heart too. And is there a person or a group of people who introduced you to all the good things in nature? Did they make you a nature lover? Did they teach you about animals and trees and water? Hold these people in your heart. They're very special. Thank them for bringing good into the world. Was there someone who showed you how to stop drinking or using drugs right when you couldn't do that yourself? Give great thanks to them. Maybe they did it for someone you love, helped them get clean and sober, and that in turn affected your life. We're all grateful for that. Was there someone who fed you something delicious, who made a holiday feel special? That is bringing good in the world. Take a moment to appreciate that person. Is there someone who helped you work out your problems with another person, a spouse, a parent, a child? When we support other people in having closer relationships and more harmony, this is a big way to bring good into the world. Is there someone who invited you over when you felt alone and gave you a place at their table? They brought good into the world. Let's thank them. Was there someone who gave you a kind word when you felt ashamed and made you feel reassured that you were going to be okay and be able to turn this around? They brought good into the world. Is there someone who encouraged you and helped you see that your life is important and has purpose? I want you to give special appreciation to them for bringing good into the world. And if you haven't yet met the person who does any of these things for you, maybe for some of them, I'll tell you what you can do instead of thanking someone who hasn't done that for you yet, is you can be the person who gives that to someone else. Because that's the great secret, that when it's done for us, it brings good into the world. But whether it's ever been done for us, we can do it for others and bring good into the world. And that good just bounces right back at us. As you think of all these good people, it's almost as if there's been a council of angels who have been with you all along. The people who showed up when you desperately needed help and you thought you had no one, but also when you didn't think you need help and they were there for you anyway. So here's what I invite you to do. Just let it in. Let it in that even though your life has had its hard times, there have been good times, and especially great kindness is done for your benefit by good people who, whether they knew it or not, were bringing good into the world. And because they did this good, and because it lifted you up each time it happened, I encourage you now to take your place among them, to be one of the people who brings good into the world. And as you heal from all the difficulties and stresses of your past, you'll have more and more space in your heart and in your life to be aware of the good that's needed in this world and to let it come through you.